Thanks for joining us on a fresh edition of the program BOI Weekly. I'm Coyote Alayande. Today on the show, our focus is on Caverton Helicopters, a subsidiary of Caverton Offshore Support Group. Having played for several years in the maritime industry as a shipping company, Caverton saw opportunities in the aviation logistics sector and took a dive as a pioneer indigenous operator. It has no doubt paid off, as the company now has hangars in multiple locations both at home and abroad. Caverton Offshore Support Group, listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, proudly provides logistics services to the oil majors as well as ad hoc clients with no less than 20 fixed-wing and rotary aircrafts in its fleet. They are currently building a massive maintenance, repair and overhaul MRO center as well as a civil aviation training center within the Murtala Mohammed International Airport. Caverton is a multiple beneficiary of intervention funds from the Bank of Industry. I spoke with the CEO, Mr. Bode Makonjola. He describes the bank as a worthy partner and a lifesaver. Stay close.
In the agricultural sector due to limited processing and preservation capacity. This results in high food prices and food importation, with its attendant effects on the nation's foreign reserves. To enable Nigerians optimize the benefits from the country's vast agricultural products such as cassava, oil palm, rice, tomatoes and others, the Bank of Industry has launched a 5 billion naira cottage agro-processing fund, the CAP Fund. Customers can access the fund to establish plans to process our various agro-produce into food products or intermediate raw materials for industries at a single-digit interest rate of 9% per annum. For more information on the CAP Fund, please visit www.boinigeria.com/capfund. Bank of Industry, developing Nigeria's agro-processing industry through the CAP Fund.
Caverton Offshore Support Group is one of the leading indigenous offshore support service companies in Nigeria. We are listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We listed in 2008. We started out as a shipping company way back in 1999 and a tanker operator actually. And then in 2004, we ventured into the aviation sector. At the time, we realized that there was a gap in terms of services being offered, and there were no indigenous players or operators in the sector at the time.
I know you operate in the oil and gas industry, and of course you do some aviation services as well. Who are your major clients?
Our main clients are the oil companies, upstream oil companies, predominantly the IOCs, Shell being our largest client, and also Total and NNPC, obviously. And we also now even service quite a large number of the Nigerian oil producers, the independent smaller oil producers.
Great. I mean, your major clients will make anyone smile, but do you have secondary clients as well, or ad hoc services that you do?
Then we also do charter services, so individuals, state governments, or other companies can call into charter flights from one of our many bases across the country, or use any type of helicopter that they desire.
Yeah, you mentioned that you started out as a tanker operator in the marine sector, yeah, and then you saw a new opportunity in the aviation industry. So there must have been some technical gaps between where you were at that time and the new foray that you wanted to go into. How did you bridge that technical gap?
I think one of the things that we we set out to do first was to try to understand the market. We realized that you needed to have a base, a solid base, and a very strong technical team. So we took our time to grow organically, as opposed to going out and finding technical partners and then bringing in aircraft and then just being a sort of third-party operator. We actually wanted to be a bona fide operator. When it comes to aviation, we know how important safety is, and we know how important these oil companies take safety, because we're ultimately responsible for moving their personnel to and fro from various installations. Most of these installations are offshore, so a lot of care has to be taken when handling these assignments.
Tell me about your backward integration, the training center, and of course the MRO. How's that panning out?
One, we're looking to diversify our revenues, our business, and the most logical or the easiest or the starting point was really looking inwards to see how can we make our business better, and is there anything we can offer as a third-party service to the wider aviation industry. And we found that we were actually spending, because what happens is pilots and engineers have to go for what we call recurrent training. So they have to, every 6 months or whenever, have to fly out to various parts of the world, Brazil, Dubai, the US, Europe, for these recurrent training. In the same vein, when we have C checks, and even thinking commercial aviation, it also occurs. You have to fly out your aircraft to various locations around the world at great expense, and to actually run your business. So what we set out to do was to say, why don't we actually see how we can actually bring these facilities to Nigeria and offer giving the same sort of commitment to quality that we have already shown. We can actually produce a viable business in one, having a maintenance, repair and overhaul center, and also a training center in Nigeria, in partnership, of course, with industry leaders like CAE, Augusta Westland, who actually manufacture, helicopter manufacturer, and of which we are an authorized service center, and even Boeing as well.
Would you like to tell me about your capacity for acquisitions as a result of that intervention, or those interventions by the Bank of Industry?
Our entry into the aviation sector of the industry wasn't just primarily on just acquiring helicopters and, like I said, finding a technical partner so you can bid for certain contracts. It was really to build capacity. And to build capacity, you needed to set up installations. So we approached the Bank of Industry to build the first ever, we'd actually started construction, to complete our helipad on Ozumba, which is actually first intercity helipad in Nigeria. And then we also approached them on another occasion to complete our hangar in Ikeja, and also in Port Harcourt. The third time we approached the BOI was to build a much larger hangar in Port Harcourt, which has just recently been commissioned, and our largest project, which is the MRO, the Maintenance, Repair and Overhaul Center in Murtala Mohammed Airport. The MRO is basically a new line of business that we're going into, whereby aircraft that normally would be flown out for also manner of checks and maintenance issues can actually be done locally in Nigeria. It's a project that we're very, very excited about. It's a project that the industry has been clamoring for a very long time, and I think it's something that will be of immense benefit, not just to Caverton, but to the aviation industry as a whole, and I dare say Nigeria as a whole.
What's the biggest challenge for you in this industry?
Cost of financing. I think any business would tell you that's the main problem in Nigeria. Cost of financing. When you're borrowing in local currency, it's double digits in 20s. Even if you're borrowing dollars, you're borrowing at double digits, which is, like I said, goes back to what we were saying about the Bank of Industry. The Bank of Industry at the time was the only organization, or the intervention fund was the only institution that you could approach and get single-digit interest rates. Everyone else was offering double digits. You can't survive, or no business can survive on that sort of high cost of financing, and let alone the aviation industry, let alone a Nigerian company operating in the aviation industry. Like I said, we are operating in a sector where our competitors are foreign companies that operate under very, very mild, I dare say, finance, under mild long-term finance terms. We're only able to get financing at double-digit over a shorter period of time. So I think, for me, that is the number one. That is the number one issue that our businesses, and I dare say a lot of other businesses, are actually struggling. I think with it, usual things, power and cost of doing business in Nigeria, those are the things that we're more concerned about. I think other things like I thought you were going to go down the usual petroleum industry bill route and all that. We don't really dwell too much on that, because one, we're a service operator, and I think the Nigerian Content Act has benefited us a lot, because it has given us the opportunity to show that a Nigerian-owned company can handle highly technical operations, and two, you can have a Nigerian company and have Nigerian technical staff.
Good thing you talked about finance. So what's the scope of the intervention of the Bank of Industry in all of this?
Without the BOI, we would have no hangars. Without the BOI, we wouldn't have the helipad. Without BOI, we wouldn't have the MRO. And I think on that alone, I think the BOI Intervention Fund has been very, very instrumental in the development of the company.
Your revenue is in hard currency, so I want to safely, I hope, assume that you're not under pressure, especially now that people are talking about forex crunch.
Our entire income isn't in dollars. It's by law. It's a mix. Usually 60% of our income from the oil companies is in dollars, but at the same time, a significant portion of our expenses is in dollars. Like I said, because we have to, our recurrent training, for instance, we have to fly out all these pilots every now and again to various locations for training. It's in dollars. Spares and maintenance and all is indoors, and those come at a very high expense. The industry is highly capital intensive. The business is highly capital intensive. So whilst I may, or people, or you may think we do not suffer the volatility of the naira, of the exchange market, we actually have quite a considerable amount of our expenses in dollars as well.
At certain points last year, you recorded some losses, and of course, your profit margin didn't soar as you expected it. How have you recovered? And if you have, how did you bounce back?
The losses that we've been experiencing of late have more or less been forex-related transactional losses, because obviously we by law we report in local currency, in naira. So when you translate our position in terms of our dollar position, in terms of our debt profile into naira, you get these translational losses. And but at the same time, we experienced a downturn, a slight dip in terms of patronage, in terms of ad hoc businesses and stuff. That affected us. So we had to spend a lot of time not downsizing, but managing our costs effectively without compromising safety. That was one of the very, very important things that we had to do. We had to sort of take very hard lines again on certain issues, trying to minimize our foreign exchange exposure by reducing our dollar exposures to a minimum. Those are the things that we try to do to try and get things down. We've been able to achieve that to a certain degree, but I think there's still a lot to be done. Like I said, we haven't bounced back, but I don't think we've fallen through the cracks yet. We are still able to offer very good service to our clients, and like I said, we reported a very, very high, very, very good safety track record in our recent audits.
I'd like to talk about your local content ratio. You mentioned that you currently have 75% Nigerians working in your organization. How soon do you hope to scale that up, and what are you actively doing to make that happen?
Once I build my training center and a lot more Nigerians come in to learn, they'll get the job. Apart from the national pride and trying to show off the fact that you have Nigerians working for you, I think we've gone past that. Now it's more, it just makes commercial sense. You know, we've grown to a certain level that we don't need to show that we're able to employ Nigerians, or we don't need to show that Nigerians can fly planes or fix a plane. We know that. It's proven time and time again. So it's just the capacity. If we get the right number of people coming through, they will fly. We don't have 100% because there aren't that many of these pilots and engineers around. Or should I, that's just it. The more that come through the system, they definitely will find employment with Caverton.
Now, you traverse the Niger Delta region quite often based on your operations now. There have been renewed attacks in those places. What's the impact of that on your operations?
No, obviously there are issues across. We've seen issues in Delta, but we try, as a company, we try to have good community relations within where we operate, and thankfully that has persisted. I think part of it has to do with we're a Nigerian company, and we actually thank host communities and the state governments and local governments in the areas that we're actually based. Because like I said, we're based in Port Harcourt, we're based in Warri, and we fly to quite a number of installations, and generally we are well received. Touch wood, we've never had any incidents of militancy or kidnapping. So we tend to operate under the guidance, and also we tend to operate under the guidance of our clients. So so if we're not the military, so if there is any sort of indication of trouble or violence in any particular area, we'll be well informed, and we won't go. So it's that simple. But there have been things that have happened to people. I know, obviously, but we've never ever experienced it, and hopefully it will continue as such. But the problems in the Delta are it affects our business because it prevents the oil operators from making further investments in the region. So that's less time flying for me. So once there's calm in the Niger Delta and more people are flying and they make more money, then everyone's happy. But from a safety point of view, I think we tend to have a generally good relationship with our host communities.
Mr. Bode Makonjola, thanks for coming on BOI Weekly.
The agricultural sector due to limited processing and preservation capacity. This results in high food prices and food importation, with its attendant effects on the nation's foreign reserves. To enable Nigerians optimize the benefits from the country's vast agricultural products such as cassava, oil palm, rice, tomatoes, and others, the Bank of Industry has launched a 5 billion naira cottage agro-processing fund, the CAP Fund. Customers can access the fund to establish plans to process our various agro-produce into food products or intermediate raw materials for industries at a single-digit interest rate of 9% per annum. For more information on the CAP Fund, please visit www.boinigeria.com/capfund. Bank of Industry, developing Nigeria's agro-processing industry through the CAP Fund.
That will be our package on the show today. Your business can be the next in line. All you've got to do is contact the Bank of Industry today by visiting their branch closest to you or visit their website at boi.ng. You can apply for loans online. Just go to the Google Play Store, download the BOI SME Loan app, and follow the instructions. For further inquiries, tweet at me at KAY Alayande or at the Bank of Industry at BOI Nigeria. That's our show today. I'm Kayode Alayande. Bye now.